Greetings everyone. In the previous video, I showed the consequences of the disaster caused by the Russians, namely the consequences of the undermining of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. To help the animals and people affected, please follow the link below the video. Thank you. Now let's talk about how the undermining of the hydroelectric power plant will affect the situation on the front line, with reference to BBC News Ukraine. Indeed, the Kherson direction was considered one of the most promising directions for a great Ukrainian counteroffensive. At least almost all Ukrainian and Western experts mentioned it as possible direction. At the end of April, there were even reports that Ukrainian forces had managed to gain a foothold on the islands. Here, in the middle of the Dnipro, and had crossed to the left bank near Kherson. Crossing the occupied territory on the left bank of the Kherson region is the shortest way to the Crimean isthmuses. We understand that Crimea is here. Once there, our Ukrainian army would be able to destroy all enemy logistics in the south. To prevent this, the Kremlin had to keep its troops on the first line of defense, which stretched along the Dnipro River, on the occupied left bank of the Kherson and partially of the Zaporizhia regions. Now these positions will be flooded. So why did Russia have to blow up the Kakhovka dam? It was done for a strategic purpose, explains Andriy Rozhenko, former deputy chief of staff of the Ukrainian naval forces. The flooding of the Dnipro coast makes it impossible to move significant Ukrainian army forces across the wide water barrier. An offensive by Ukrainian forces in the Kherson sector is now impossible, at least until autumn, confirms military expert Pavlo Lakichuk. Firstly, Russian troops have destroyed the last bridge crossing over the Dnipro in the Kherson region, which could theoretically be used by Ukrainian forces to move equipment to the left bank. Second, the large-scale flooding of settlements is significantly destabilizing the situation in the region. In addition, there are environmental and potential nuclear threats due to problems with cooling the reactors at the Zaporizhia NPP. And Russia has effectively ruled out the Kherson region on the left bank as a potential arena for Ukrainian offensive. And now it can withdraw most of its troops from there to strengthen its positions near Melitopol, here, Berdyansk, here, or in the Donetsk region. But Konstantin Mashovets, a military analyst with the Information Resistance Group, is confident that the positive effect for Russia will be short-lived. There is no sufficient reason, including the military factor, for blowing up the hydroelectric power plant dam. In this sense, the effect of such an action will be short-lived. In his opinion, Russian troops could have blown up the hydroelectric power plant because they saw the Ukrainian army's readiness to cross the Dnipro in the near future, or because they themselves are already planning to withdraw to Crimea, leaving behind devastated and destroyed areas. Meanwhile, our Ukrainian military and political leaders are assuring us that the actions of Russian troops will not stop the offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces. Nothing and no one, not a single Russian, will stop the liberation of Ukraine, whose time has come, said Alexei Danilov, Secretary of the Security Council of Ukraine. The same statement was made by the Strategic Communications Department of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. They assured that Ukraine has all the necessary vessels and pontoon bridges to force water obstacles. The insidious actions of the enemy creating a social and economic crisis will not stop the Ukrainian armed forces, which are ready to liberate the occupied territories. The flooding of the Dnieper by the undermining of the Kakhovka reservoir may also reduce the threat of artillery shelling off Kherson, says Natalia Humenyuk, spokeswoman for the Southern Operational Command.
Что? Прям за нами. Стой, за зданием надо быть.
In recent weeks, Russian troops have shelled the regional center almost daily. Because of the high water, the Russian troops have to get as far away from the left bank as possible. This means that it will be a little easier for the residents of Kherson on the right bank to face shelling, said the spokeswoman for the operational command. The Ukrainian military working on the ground has a less positive view of the situation. Asked who would suffer more militarily from the explosion at the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant, the Ukrainian army officer doesn't hesitate to answer, definitely us. I recall to help the animals and people affected. Please follow the links below the video. Thank you for watching, and glory to Ukraine.